What are the 9 most terrifying words in college football? Well, you don't have to guess. I got them written down right here. I'm from the NCAA, and I'm here to help. That's not exactly the Ronald Reagan government quote from back in the 80s, but I am stealing it because it absolutely applies tonight. The NCAA had a golden opportunity this past week. In case you missed it, and judging by the social lives you guys have, you probably did, we don't have any around here, and so we were paying attention. The NCAA Rules Committee, probably the first segment I've ever put my hand on my chin. This is how perplexed I am. The NCAA Rules Committee goes and they meet. And there are 2 pressing issues, among others, that they met about. You've probably yelled at your TV or the radio if you're out on the porch and you don't want to listen to the TV announcers. You have probably yelled ad nauseum about these 2 things, just like I have. One of them is faking injuries. The other is how we enforce targeting right now. To be clear, because I'm not going to restate this because it's obvious, nobody on this show nor in our audience is against targeting. There's a reason why the rule is in the sport. No one's arguing against the targeting rule. Now that we got that foolishness out of the way, let's continue. This is a very, very divided society we live in. It's even a divided sport that we live in. There's a lot of argument, a lot of, as Tim Brendo would say, angst and anger and bitterness. But you know where we've found some overwhelming consensus? In 2 areas. Faking injuries, no one likes it. Pretty much everyone agrees it's a mockery of the game. And the way that we kick kids out of games blindly anytime they're found guilty of targeting. There's no room for interpretation. There's no room to say, that right there, what we're looking at on YouTube, is a clear launching, helmet to helmet, crown down, get him out of the game. But then we've got other instances where, a ball carrier lowers himself at the last minute after the defender's already committed his body to contact, and there is what should be called incidental targeting. It doesn't exist. The official does not have it within his power in the football game to interpret it that way, because NCAA rules don't allow him to. So I got bad news for you, and I got worse news for you. The bad news is the NCAA Rules Committee set out to solve these issues this past week, and the worst news is they did what they normally do, and they fumbled it horribly. They have proposals, though. I'm about to show them to you or read them to you. They are a couple of wet bags of trash. I'm going to warn you, but I'm going to show them to you. So on the issue of targeting, most of us look at targeting, and we see 2 different kinds of targeting. We see the egregious kind of targeting, which, to the rule's credit, has largely been eradicated from the game because of the rule. So it has done what it was intended to do. But also it's done a lot of things that it was never intended to do. And it's taken a defender, and in many cases in football games every Saturday, it puts the defender in a no-win situation. Quite literally, you could watch college football on any given Saturday and see 3, 4, 5 examples, depending on how many games you watch, of guys where they get ejected for targeting, and you look at your TV and you say, I don't know what else he could have done. I have no idea how he could have avoided this. And normally what it is it is a defender who is not playing the game in frame-by-frame slow motion. It's moving like a NASCAR race out on a football field. Unfortunately, a lot of people who write these rules have never found themselves on one of those fields, have never buckled a chin strap or been involved in any kind of high-level competition, so they don't grasp this. But plays don't work in slow motion. It's really quick. So when you freeze frame it and you say, this is where he should have pulled up, that's not how the real world out on a football field works. And so a lot of times what you see on Saturday is you see a kid commit his body to contact. Once you've committed your body to contact, only a fraction or 2 of a second is going to pass, but there's enough time when you're moving full speed for that ball carrier to lower his body. You've already committed. You can't change a thing about the trajectory of your body at that point. That ball carrier, though, lowers his upper torso, therefore initiating helmet-to-helmet contact, and I never see running backs get charged with targeting, so the safety, it's under review, boom, targeting confirmed, he's out of the game. Nothing he could have done. Nothing he could have done. Now, you and I watched that, and we clearly realize there's a difference in the headhunting that we wanted to eradicate from the game and what that kid from Marshall just did. But yet, the NCAA rules, as currently written, do not acknowledge that. Well, they met about that. So I'm going to read you the proposal, and then I'm going to show you a quote after that. Here's the proposal that the NCAA arrived at, solving absolutely nothing in the process. I want to breathe deeply because I'm going to get mad reading this, but I want to try and remove my emotions. Okay, here we go. In games that have instant replay, when a targeting foul occurs in the second half, the carryover penalty, or the fact that you have to sit out the first half of next week's game, will be eligible for further appeal. That's it. That's all they concluded. They never even so much as broached the idea of differentiating between flagrant and intentional. They said, okay, well, we got a problem that's over here, so let's look way over in this corner and let's decide that if you get targeted called on you in the second half, we're gonna let you appeal. And if we find that we were wrong, we're going to give you the first half of next week's game back. I told you, these are wet bags of trash. They're not proposals, they're wet bags of trash. Let's take a look at what David Shaw said. David Shaw is a great football coach. I'm thoroughly disappointed that he has to be the chair of the Rules Committee. I don't know how much he believes the words that came out of his mouth here. Full disclosure, he may be speaking for a committee. For all I know, he fought against this. So I'm just going to tell you, these are the words that he offered. Quote, the committee strongly supports the targeting rule and believes it continues to directly support player health and safety and technique. Adjustments have been made in recent years to ensure proper enforcement, which is very important given the significant penalty associated with the rule. Okay, so that says nothing about nothing. So we did nothing to cure the actual issue that exists with targeting right now. We put in some bootleg proposal that still has to be confirmed, by the way, wherein if you get flagged in the second half, you may have an outside shot of getting the first half of next week's game back. And by the way, they're not telling you if we flag you with targeting and then we go back upon appeal and look at it and it wasn't that bad that we're going to give you the first half back next week. No, they are still not willing to differentiate at all between flagrant and incidental. Therefore, it doesn't matter. That scenario plays out we just talked about. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if there's a thing you could have done about it or not. If you get flagged for targeting and our review says that it was confirmed, then hey, you're out first half of next week. As I said, pathetic. We move on. On the issue of faking injuries. A lot of you remember that Tennessee Ole Miss game from this past year. Most of us watched that. I was there on the field in person thinking to myself, this is a mockery of the game. There's no way this is the way football is supposed to be played. And it wasn't even like they were trying to hide it. There's just a running joke now. Quite literally, after the NCAA passed what I'm about to tell you they proposed, at least, Lane Kiffin tagged Tennessee football on Twitter. That's how big a joke it is. Even the offenders of the rule are laughing openly. They know there's no recourse. We can do it as many times as we want to right now. Oh, but can you? Because the NCAA has a proposal. Here's what they came up with. If you thought the first part was pathetic, how about this? On the topic of faking injury, I'm not saying Ole Miss is the only offender, by the way, as we show, as Colin shows B-roll of Tennessee doing the same thing. I am merely pointing out an example. Okay, now here we go. This is from the NCAA. To address teams that are awarded an injury timeout through deceptive actions, the committee proposed a reporting and investigatory process. Sounds great. They handle investigations so well already. Let's add more to their plate. Schools and conferences would be able to report questionable scenarios to the national coordinator of officials who will review and provide feedback to the conference for further action. Any penalties levied would be up to the conference or the school involved. Nothing. Absolutely nothing about nothing was addressed there that would have substantive change associated with it. Here is David Shaw, again the Rules Committee chair, on this wet bag of trash of a proposal. He said it is very difficult to legislate ethics, particularly when an injury timeout is being used to gain an advantage. The small number of teams that seem to use these tactics should be addressed directly. This is called dead air. It's unprofessional, but sometimes in lieu of saying what I'm thinking, because I do know that we don't just have sailors and truckers listening to the show, we do have families listening, I've got to choose my words carefully. And so this is me slowing down to choose my words carefully. I know what most of you think about this because you have common sense about yourself. I think the same thing. They had a problem in one corner to solve. It was very clear, and yet they went over into the other corner of the room and they solved nothing. These people would screw up a paint by numbers. It's insane how straightforward and easy these things should be to solve. If you want to stop the faking of injuries, then make there be punitive measures when you fake injuries. David Shaw says we can't legislate ethics. Remove you legislating ethics entirely from it. Have a hard and fast rule that if you go down and you cannot physically get yourself off a football field and we have to stop play, you're out for the rest of the series. That's it. No interpretation needed. If you're that hurt, then you will not finish the series. Boom. That's it. Don't worry about it. Instead, the NCAA comes up and says, no, that's fine though. We don't need to do it that way. We're going to have a reporting process and then a subsequent investigatory process, like it's Neighborhood Watch or something. This is a football game. It's college football. It sounds like 4 months would pass before they decided whether you were actually guilty of faking injuries or not. Can't wait to watch that. Because again, this is a governing body that is so great thus far at investigating. Arizona State expects to hear from them sometime in the 2030s about their ongoing NCAA investigation. We move to targeting. If you want to fix targeting, acknowledge the obvious. This earpiece coming out is one of those. If you want to fix targeting, acknowledge the obvious. And that is that there is a clear distinction between an intentional, malicious targeting foul and an incidental targeting foul. Like all of us with 2 eyeballs and a functioning brain can see every Saturday. Instead, the NCAA says, no, but don't worry. We are addressing this. We may give you the first half of next week back if you commit it in the second half. How's that for everyone? And then they put their fingers in their ears and they walk away. They got paid for this. These people get paid money to make these decisions. It's insanity, pure insanity. Why can't you guys just be cool for one day? Why can't you just do the right thing for one day? It's so simple, so simple. I'm at a loss for words. I have no words. In the words of Michael Scott, I have no words.